Hi, I'm Jim Harmer, author of Improve Your HDR Photography. Today we're going to work on a picture from the British Virgin Islands, and we're going to walk through the steps that you need to take to post-process an image in Photomatix and in Photoshop. And we're not going to do just the basic HDR tutorial here. We're going to go through a couple more advanced techniques that can really bring your HDR photography to the next level. The picture that you can see here it's a great composition, but it was shot in the middle of the day, and so the lighting is really flat and harsh. We have harsh shadows. The saturation in the colors is gone from the harsh lighting. There's no contrast in it, and so this is a perfect candidate for HDR because we can really bring those things out. Also, we're going to simplify the composition by bringing the boat from the bottom of the picture, and we're going to bring it up by the people on the beach. So this is the original picture, and this is the picture that we're going to make right now in Photomatix. Alright, let's get started on the computer here. We're going to go through the steps one by one, and hopefully we'll learn a lot of tips on the way. Let's get started. Alright, so as you know, to get started, we open Photomatix. I'm using Photomatix 4, and we're going to load bracketed photos, browse, and we're going to choose our three images: the correctly exposed, 2 stops underexposed, and 2 stops overexposed. Open them up. We are going to click Show Intermediary 32-bit HDR Image. There's a good reason for that. That is so that we can, in the middle, save multiple HDRs, tone map different ways, and combine them together and to grab the better parts of each HDR. We're going to align the source images just to make sure that we didn't move around. We aren't going to worry too much about ghosting artifacts. There could be some movement in the waves, but I'm not too worried about it. We don't need to reduce noise because this was shot in the middle of the day. I'm pretty sure it was shot low ISO. So we're not going to worry about these things. We'll say OK. We're going to load the source images. Let me take this moment to explain a little bit better about what we're going to do. If you just tone map one HDR, you can only really get one look out of it. And sometimes the clouds need a little bit more tone mapping, and the landscape maybe a little bit less. So we're going to tone map 2 HDRs, one for the sky and one for the rest of the scene, and then we'll blend them together in Photoshop. That, I would say, is the biggest difference between an amateur Photomatix user and an advanced user, is really taking advantage of using the HDR process on specific parts of the image. Here we'll go File, Save As. This is the intermediary HDR file so that we can tone map it twice, so that we don't have to go through that loading them into an HDR file and aligning the images twice. We just want to do it once. So we have here, now we're going to go ahead and tone map the images. We'll click Tone Map. When this comes up, a lot of people just jump right to the sliders. I'd really discourage that because you have some great tools here in the presets down at the bottom. I'm actually going to use this Painterly preset as a good starting point. Okay, that looks really good compared to the default. See, the default is a little bit flat. So let's go to the Painterly. And remember, as we're processing this, we want this to be a little bit stronger of an HDR than we would typically like. So we'll get this, and then later we'll make it more realistic in Photoshop. We'll go ahead now and play with some of these settings. If you have the strength to 100, you're going to get some grain. Like, for example, see that grain as I zoom in? That grain, that's actually not noise, that's grain, and it's caused by several things, one being too much strength. So we'll drop our strength about to 88. There's still going to be some grain, but we will have improved it quite a bit actually, and we won't see that too much when we're zoomed out. We really want to bring in some saturation here because this is a beach scene. We want to really see those colors. Alright, we're seeing a lot of difference here. We'll bring up the micro contrast a little bit, not too much so that we don't hurt that grain too bad. You can see our exposure here by looking at this histogram, and you can see that we're doing pretty good. We're pushed slightly to the right, a little bit more toward the center than I would have liked from the shots in the camera, but we're doing okay. The smoothing mode is the most important setting, and that controls how realistic it's going to look. we're actually, well, looks a little bit better on medium. Clicking this light mode button here will bring up the shadows. When we don't have it clicked, it darkens the shadows quite a bit. Look in the shadows and see we're going to do a lot better with that light mode turned on. Now these other settings do have their place, but you have to really be careful about using them. In this picture there's no real point. I might bring up the white point just slightly for those clouds. Other than that, these settings are really just going to hurt it. I honestly wouldn't mess with these unless you really know what you're doing and you're sure that Photoshop can't do it better. Most of these, Photoshop's going to do it better once we get in there. Okay, this is looking pretty good. We'll go ahead and process this file. We'll process this. And while that's going, now after looking at that picture, we notice that we need to fix a couple things. For example, the sky just didn't look too great. The clouds kind of got too blue from too much saturation. So we're going to go through now and post-process another HDR file just for the sky. We're going to work on it, and then we'll combine the two in Photoshop. Okay, there's my final one. We'll go File, Save As, and we're going to save this as Overdone. We'll call this Overdone HDR. Alright, we'll X out of that, and now we want to open that HDR file that we made a minute ago. This is the intermediary HDR, and it looks all funky because it's 32-bit at this point until we can tone map it. 32-bit just doesn't show on our screens very well. Someday we'll get there. Alright, so we're going to go back to that starting point. See, the clouds how we had them were just too strange looking, too blue, had too much saturation. So this time we'll use less saturation. Our strength's going to come down just slightly to get rid of some of that grain. Our luminance is going to come down to get rid of more of that grain. We're going to bring up our micro contrast. That's going to hurt our grain just slightly, but it's going to make our clouds look really good. And let's see how we do with our smoothing modes, what these look like. Oh, please. It makes me nauseous. Okay, so we'll go to the medium. The medium looks about right to me. Alright, so we'll go ahead and process this one. And when this is done, we're going to call this, whatever, Overdone Clouds. And then we'll fire up Photoshop and we'll start mixing these together. Okay, we finished what we need to do in Photomatix, and now we're just going to finish everything out using Photoshop. So I'm going to go File, Open, and we're going to navigate to where we saved the two pictures, the Overdone HDR, well, I guess three, the Overdone HDR, the Overdone HDR just for the clouds, and then one of just the original picture. So I'll bring those up here. There's 1, 2, and the original. Alright, I'll open up all three of these pictures. It's going to bring into Camera Raw where I can make changes if I want. And I'll just get these as close to what I want as possible. This is the original. We'll just add a little clarity and contrast, maybe just a touch of vibrance, but not too much. Then we'll go to the Overdone HDR. All I want to add here is some contrast. The HDR process, you know, it brings together all the tones so much that sometimes we lose a little bit of global contrast. So I'll bring these pictures up. Oops. Alright, now I have the three pictures. Alright, I've opened up in Photoshop the two pictures we made in Photomatix, and also the original picture. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it the cheater way, Control A, Control C, and I'll put these on layers so that we have all the parts that we need to the picture, and now we're going to blend them together. I'll go ahead and put this the original. I'll rename it original, and we're just going to blend these together. I'll turn that off for now. I'm going to put on a layer mask on this top one. This top one is the main one, and then the bottom we use just for the clouds. So I'm going to put a mask on here with black paint, and if you paint with a layer mask, you know that erases the picture, and we just wanted to get some of the blue out of the clouds here. So when I paint through this, we'll go just to the bottom layer, which didn't have such blue clouds, and that looks much better. The only other thing is we're going to paint over the people down here on the beach, because they're looking kind of radioactive orange, like they've been on the beach for 10 days. There. The layer underneath did much better for that. Okay, now we have that. The only thing we have left to do is blend in the original, because this is just looking way too overdone. So that's the original single image, and we'll put the opacity maybe to 24% and maybe less. Oops, I'm changing the opacity to the wrong layer. Alright, now we'll change the opacity, just so it doesn't look too fakey. Okay, that's a little bit fakey, and that's just a little bit more natural, and I like that, just so it's not too overpowering. Alright, now the last thing we have to do, I'm going to hit Control Shift Alt E, and that makes a virtual copy of all the other layers underneath, and now we're able to edit multiple layers at one time. So I'm just going to lasso around the boat here. We'll get that. Control A or Control C, Control V, and we're going to move this boat up by the people on the beach. And we're just going to have to make it look a little bit more natural. So I won't walk through all the steps here. I'll just show you kind of how it works, and then how it works if you actually spend some time into it. And we'll just finish that up. Anyway, we'll do that, and then we'd get the clone brush here. We'll change our size with the bracket keys, and we'd just paint over these trees. That's a hack job of it. And then we'd come down here and paint, oops, wrong layer, and we'd paint over the boat down here just to be sand. Now if you do all that, eventually you'll get the picture looking just right. And here's what I've done with a little bit more time, painting in that boat and painting in the sand there. If you look from far enough away, nobody's really going to notice what's going on. So that is our final image. That's it for this tutorial, but I would encourage you to check out my book, Improve Your HDR Photography. You can buy it for $5.99. If you have an iPad or an iPhone, you can use the iBooks application. Just search for the name of the book, Improve Your HDR Photography, and it'll come right up. Or you can buy it for your Kindle or Nook in those ebook stores. Or if you don't have an e-reader, you can buy it on your computer. You'll get a PDF version of the book that you can read right on your computer. Just go to smashwords.com and search for the name of the book, Improve Your HDR Photography, and you'll be learning lots more tips like this. Also, you can search for Improve Your Landscape Photography, which is another book that I've written, and it's available in those same places for the same price.